Greetings and welcome back to Room 303 in our chats with Emily as we are calling our readings through the poetry of Emily Dickinson. We are using the Johnson edition. We turned now to poem 678, Wolfe demanded during dying. Now there's some background knowledge here that will be of some importance to us. In many ways though, we are back to Emily's musings on the battlefield. It is interesting that Emily wrote so many of these poems during the time of the crisis of the great American Civil War, and she rarely specifically references those experiences of the battles in the war. But she often will make appreciative observations that are kind of asymptotic in some ways to what we know is the backdrop of so many of these poems. You'll remember, for example, in poem 67, success is counted sweetest by those who ne'er succeed to comprehend. A nectar requires sorest meat. What does she say? Not one of all the purple hosts that took the flag today can tell the definition so clear of victory as he defeated dying, on whose forbidden ear the triumphs, strains of triumph burn agonized and clear. The idea that there's winners and there are losers. Hey guys, do you remember when we did 639 just recently, and we played the game of general who had to come to an acceptance of defeat? My portion is defeat today, a paler luck than victory. Less peons, fewer bells, the drums don't follow me with tunes. Defeat a somewhat slower means, more arduous than balls. 'Tis populous with bone and stain, and men too straight to stoop again, and piles of solid moan, and chips of blank and boyish eyes, and scraps of prayer and death's surprise, stamped visible in stone. They're somewhat prouder over there. The trumpets tell it in the air, how different victory to him who has it, and the one who to have had it would have been contenteder to die. Now in this poem, there will be, in fact, a notion of contenteder to die. There's some history here that we got to make sure is in your notes. September the 12th, 1759, James Wolfe, an English general, will defeat Montcalm, his French counterpart, in a battle, a crucial battle for Quebec. Wolfe will die at the end of the battle itself, and Montcalm will die the next morning. Montcalm finds in this poem some consolation in defeat, and in fact more consolation than the defeated general that we just read about in 639. He will basically say, my own surrender to death is sweet because it takes the sting out of the surrender of liberty, right? So when we get to this one. Now, in many ways, we're back to poem 675 as well, that in some ways may owe something to, David Priest, the scholar, says, a letter to a young contributor. For in that one, Higginson wrote, quote, General Wolfe on the eve of battle said of Gray's elegy in a country churchyard. We've given full lectures on it at learnstrong.net. About that poem, he said, quote, gentlemen, I would rather have written that poem than taken Quebec. You gotta love a general that loves his poetry. Now our assumptions here that you've been following our stuff at learnstrong.net, down that left-hand side, chats with Emily, our playlist. I'm hopeful that you worked through a set of introductory comments as well as the preceding 677 poems. We just finished with 677, To Be Alive is Power. Now the scholar Gordon has pointed this out in his classic book, My Wars Are Laid Away in Books. The following, quote, the Civil War offered Dickinson a stark, symbolic theater, a place of ultimate terror and exultation in which mundane life was forgotten and there was both everything and nothing to lose. War gave her a powerful vehicle with which to parse her own extremity. Brilliantly said. Now, this is another death poem. Of course, death, we've said, in at least 135 of her poems is mentioned explicitly. And I want to remind you as well that Emily loved Robert Browning's monologues, those dramatic monologues, right? We've studied a number of them together, My Last Duchess, Porphyra's Lover, and the like. We'll have a type of monologue game being played here. She'll say it this way. Wolfe demanded during dying, which obtain the day? General, the British. Easy, answered Wolfe, to die. Montcalm, his opposing spirit, rendered with a smile. Sweet, said he, my own surrender, liberty's beguile. Now, so much of this poem rests, of course, on the quotation marks. That is to say, notice, at the end of this battle, right, of the 12th of September, 1759, Wolfe wants to know, during his death, did we win? Did we obtain the day? And he is told, yes, the British won. And then he comes back to say, then it's easy for me to die. So it's easy for Wolfe to die because he won the battle. In other words, he doesn't go down in history as a loser. And so for him, easy to die. But then Emily, in her brilliant fashion, takes the view of the other side. What about Montcalm and the loss? Montcalm, his opposing spirit, I love that she says spirit, not enemy, rendered with a smile. And I love the use of that word rendered. It's brilliant. Notice, this is what he had to say in his dying breath the next morning. Sweet, said he, my own surrender, liberty's beguile. Better to die in defeat than to live to have to see that in fact it is over for me, and to give up my freedom, my liberty. That use of the word sweet in 113 poems we've already commented on a number of times. What are we going to say about a poem like this one in regards to our level 2A themes messages? I think the argument Emily's making is that how we die has everything to do with how we live. And again, the challenge for her is to say, hey, this is the way to go. Now, when we get to poem 759, we will come back to this study one more time. He fought like those who've not to lose, bestowed himself to balls, as one who for a further life had not a further use, invited death with bold attempt, but death was coy of him, as other men were coy of death. To him to live was doom. His comrades shifted like the flakes when gusts reversed the snow, but he was left alive because of greediness to die. We'll come back again to this idea. At 2B, I think it is interesting. It's a type of a dramatic monologue of a kind where, although not technically a monologue, you have this speaking that happens at the very end of one's life, which takes us to 3A. Of course, we would be remiss to not mention Walt Whitman's Drum Taps, which plays into similar games. Of course, Keats's When I Have Fears That I May Cease to Be, Before My Pen Has Gleaned My Teeming Brain. Of course, he'll say at the end of that, then on the shore of the wide world I stand alone and think, till what love and fame to nothingness do sink, trying to convince myself that it's okay to die. I can't help but think, though, as well, of these lines and the final lines of the Beowulf poem that we've given full lectures on at learnstrong.net. You'll remember as Beowulf is there, having killed the dragon with his younger helpmate, Wiglaf, that he makes those famous comments about the life that he tried to live, a good life, a life that he would be proud of. Finally, at 3B, to think about this question of leaving one's life in death, how would you choose to leave your life? And what would be the words you think you would speak? Thank you.